So yeah, I think that could happen in South Africa too, even if an opposition coalition does come to power. And if they don't manage to sort things out and things work properly, then we could see that the ANC gets voted back in.
The coalition government in Johannesburg has fallen apart. Joining me to try and unpack and make sense of the coalition in Johannesburg, as well as some lessons we can learn for others going forward, is Marius Roodt from the Institute of Race Relations. Marius is a writer and senior researcher at the IRR. Marius, thanks very much for being with me. Let's just talk a little bit about what happened with the latest collapse of the coalition in Johannesburg with the ousting of DA Mayor, former Mayor Mpho Phalatse. What do you think lay behind that? Let's just start off with that.
Yeah, I think it comes down to the Patriotic Alliance. They've been something of a flip-flopper when it comes to coalitions. Sometimes they've supported the DA, sometimes they've supported the ANC. And I think it was last year that they formally joined the coalition that was governing Johannesburg. They signed the coalition agreement, all that kind of thing, and that's resulted in the coalition in Joburg, the DA-led coalition, having a majority on the council. So that meant that controlled more than 50% of the seats on the council. That was with the Patriotic Alliance. However, subsequently, the Patriotic Alliance has reneged on a couple of, the deal, so to speak, and it demanded more seats on the mayoral committee, which the DA apparently was not prepared to give up. Was not prepared to give the Patriotic Alliance for a number of reasons. One of those, they wanted the Economic Development mayoral committee post, which it seems that if you control that post, you have quite a lot of control over other functions in the city. And a lot of people were worried within the DA that would mean that the PA would be able to have some patronage taps opening, and would be a couple of issues. So the DA was apparently prepared to offer the PA some other positions on the mayoral committee, but it didn't materialize. The PA didn't want to accept it. So Action SA and the Freedom Front Plus were apparently willing to give the PA these posts, but the DA didn't want to budge. And it seems the DA actually had fairly good reason not to want to budge on that stance. So that saw the PA leave the coalition and then with the ANC and the EFF in Mpho Phalatse, and then voting for the new Johannesburg mayor, who's Thapelo Ama from the Al Jamaa party, which is it's a very small party. It's only received about 1% of the votes in the local government election in Joburg. It's won one ward in the local government elections. So yeah, it's quite a thing. A party that received that we're 99 for South Africa's biggest city, and easily the biggest municipal economy in South Africa. It's bigger than some provinces, it's bigger than some other African countries. So we have a guy who's in charge of from a couple of clips I've seen on online and so on, he doesn't seem to be a real heavyweight, but we'll have to wait to see. But I think what it comes down to, though, it's also clear that the ANC and the EFF, this is just a stopgap. Mayor Ahmad's just a stopgap. He's not he's not a guy that's going to be mayor for very long, I don't think. This is basically the ANC and the EFF just put in there to bide their time while they, iron out some kinks in their agreement. So I think it's probably clear we'll probably get an ANC mayor within the next couple of weeks in Joburg. We're probably going to get an EFF mayor or from another party in Ekurhuleni, where the DA coalition there also seems to be under stress. So yeah, but it's also, I think this comes down to, it shows you that the ANC and the EFF are not interested in good governance or stable governance in these municipalities. If they were, they would have come to an agreement before this on ensuring that there's a mayor who's going to serve for a while. Obviously, Thapelo Ahmed is not going to be mayor for very long. I'd be very surprised if he's still the mayor of Joburg by the end of March, maybe even the end of February. So yeah, it's clear that this is all just politics. And as I say, the ANC and the EFF have very, very little interest in creating a stable governance in Johannesburg. And that probably also goes for, they're probably not that keen, or they have no interest in a stable government in Ekurhuleni either.
Marius, how real do you think is the risk that these sorts of fallouts and disagreements will discourage voters in the 2024 general election for maybe voting for some of the coalition parties? Do you think that's a real risk? Do you think I'm being too concerned here, or do you think it might feed into just people's disillusionment? Because I think if you looked at previous trends, of course, millions of voters simply stayed away from voting. It wasn't a case of former ANC voters going to vote for opposition parties. They just stayed away.
Yeah, I think there's probably going to be a bit of that. I'm sure we'll see some people who voted for opposition parties maybe thinking, let's just vote for the ANC. You don't want to have this kind of mess at national level. But I think there's two things here too. I think a lot of people will simply just be, disgusted with what's been going on and simply decide not to vote. But there's a risk that even if we do, even if an opposition coalition gets voted into at national level, if coalition parties, which aren't the ANC, don't manage to get their ducks in a row, I think we could easily see that the ANC voters decide to give the ANC another chance. We've seen this happen abroad. We've seen it happen in India when India, they were governed by the Indian National Congress, or also called the Congress Party, from independence, which was in 1948 or 47, I think, up until the late 1970s. Then a coalition of parties came, they voted out, managed to take over from the Indian National Congress. But there was such infighting within the coalition for a number of reasons. But one of them was there were different ideologies within the coalition. There was no that the coalition only came together to get rid of the Congress Party. And 3 years later, there was another election, and the Congress Party won a landslide in coming back. So I think that could easily happen here in South Africa too. A lot of the parties that work together seem to, the only reason they are working together is to get rid of the ANC. And I think there needs to be some broad ideological agreement between coalition partners. And that's what happened in India, also happened in Argentina, for example. We've just seen, or not just seen, but a couple of years ago, they voted in the left-wing governments again. Cristina Fernandez, I think her surname is. She was the president, now she's the vice president. And anyway, she's from the left wing of Argentinian politics with some really bad ideas and so on. But they took over from a kind of a centrist reformist president who'd been voted in to take over from the bunch of left-wingers in Argentina. But in the 4 years he was in charge, he just didn't manage to change things too much. There was just, a lot of vested interests, and it was a difficult thing to turn around the ship of Argentina, which is actually in bigger trouble than South Africa in a lot of ways. So yeah, I think that could happen in South Africa too, even if an opposition coalition does come to power. And, if they don't manage to sort things out and things work properly, then we could see that the ANC gets voted back in. But yeah, I think all that said, I do think that the ANC does seem to be a bit out of energy, I think. And I think once the ANC does end up on the opposition benches, which I think is, there's a chance it'll happen in 2024. I think it'll certainly happen in 2029. I'm not sure if the ANC's got the energy to be in the opposition or to be in opposition. I think if we look at a place like the Western Cape, where the ANC's not even the 30% party anymore, it barely got 20% of the votes in the last local government election in the Western Cape there. So I think once the ANC loses power, I think there's going to be quite an uphill battle for the party to get back to not fall apart. And we've seen that kind of thing happen to lots of big hegemonic parties in Africa that have lost power. Giant South African example is the National Party, which once it lost power, 10 years later was gone. Happened in Kenya with a party called KANU, the Kenya African National Union. Happened in Zambia with a party that governed for 30 years since independence, United National Independence Party. That party and KANU both actually still exist, but they're both kind of 1%, 2% parties. And I think that could easily happen to the ANC.
Thank you very much for watching. Please remember before you leave to like this video if you have not yet done so. And please also remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We appreciate any support that you can give us. Please also remember to share our videos across your networks with your colleagues and your friends. Until next time, this has been Chris Hattingh for the Center for Risk Analysis. Take care.